You know, our next guest, last time he was with us, is kind of like asking God, would you tell us how it was when you first created stuff? Hugh Ross, distinguished astronomer, and he's just written a book. I have never read a book like this about Job, talking about all the hidden treasures of the book of Job. And it's a pleasure to welcome back to the 700 Club an outstanding Christian, Hugh Ross. Thank you for being here.
Well, my pleasure.
Thank you. How come Job? What got you interested in writing about Job?
Well, I've always been fascinated by Job ever since I gave my life to Christ, just realizing it is the foundation for the rest of the Bible. I believe it's the oldest book in the Bible. It has the most content about science and creation. So it's always been a place I go to as a witnessing tool when I talk to people from a scientific perspective. Then I realized nobody's really written a book on Job from that perspective of science and creation. And especially what intrigued me is how Job actually deals with scientific discoveries that are happening right now. I mean, here's the oldest book in the Bible, the most up-to-date book in the Bible. He even talks about things like cosmic darkness and global warming. And I was particularly fascinated by what it said about what the Bible calls the soulish animals, birds and mammals, and how God designed them to serve and please us. But Job brings out the fact that God designed them to teach us things about God. And as I thought about that,
soulish animals, you're not talking about human beings, you're talking about animals that are...
Well, when you look at Genesis 1, there are three separate origins of life.
All right.
Creation day 1, you got the origin of life that's purely physical.
All right.
You know, like bacteria, insects. And then you go into Creation Day 5, where it talks about soulish animals that are not just physical, but endowed by God with mind, will, and emotions, so that they can nurture one another, relate to one another, but primarily God designed them to serve and please human beings, each in their own distinct way.
They can't worship God, though.
They can't, no. There's the third origin of life is human beings, the one species and only species that's body, soul, and spirit. And so as God designed these soulish animals to serve a higher species, namely us, he designed us to serve and please him.
You know, the PBS is making a big deal about crows now, about how smart crows are. So,
well, it's something Job actually talks about.
Does he? What does he say?
Well, I mean, here you got Darwin saying that the human properties of the mind naturally evolved from primates. But new research is showing us that ravens, for example, far surpass chimpanzees in intellectual capability.
Do they really?
They really do. Well, for example, ravens, without any human training, can take a tool to recover a different tool to get a food treat. And if you try to do that with a chimpanzee, you have to train him for a significant period of time before the chimpanzee will do that.
Incredible.
And,
well, back to the...
And clearly we're not descended from ravens.
Talk to me about this dark matter stuff. I mean, as I understand, the universe is an exquisite balance, and it's got so much dark matter. And what is it? How do we know it's there?
Well, Job actually said it first.
All right.
I mean, you know, as a physicist, I was taught that darkness is the absence of light.
Yes.
But Job 38, verse 19 and 20, God says, do you know where darkness resides? Can you take me to its place? Making the point that darkness is a real substance, not just the absence of light. Well, today we know that the universe is predominantly composed of dark stuff. Dark energy, exotic dark matter, and ordinary dark matter. And if you put those three together, it makes up 99.73% of the entirety of the universe. And it actually has specific geographical locations. Each of those three different kinds of cosmic darkness has a different geographical location. And what really impressed me, I mean, if you were to ask me as a scientist, what's the most spectacular evidence for supernatural, superintelligent design, it would be the fine-tuning and the quantities of the three different kinds of cosmic darkness, and secondarily would be the locations of those three kinds.
Where are they?
Where are they?
Yeah.
Well, dark energy, which is 73% of the universe, is evenly distributed over the space surface of the universe. I mean, all of reality is on the surface of the universe. And then exotic dark matter exists in giant halos around the large galaxies and galaxy clusters. And embedded within those halos of exotic matter are halos of ordinary matter. And so when you look at our galaxy, for example, you see the stars and stuff, but beyond that is a much larger halo of protons and neutrons that we can't see.
How do we know it's there?
Because of the gravitational influence.
Okay.
So we can actually see the gravity that this stuff is exerting.
In your book, and I don't want to overstate it, but you indicated, you said there was 1,000,000 trillion, is it planets, heavenly bodies?
50 billion trillion stars in the observable
50 billion
universe.
Trillion,
Right.
50 billion trillion stars.
And it's got to be that big if you want human beings.
Come on, why?
Well, if the universe were any smaller than that, all you would get would be hydrogen and helium in the entire history of the universe, and you'd be lacking the elements essential for life. And if we're any bigger than that, then the universe would be nothing but elements heavier than iron. And again, you'd be missing the carbon, oxygen, and nitrogen. The universe must be exactly the size that it is in order to get life, and it particularly fine-tuned if you want humans.
In other words, just for us.
All this is just for us, exactly.
This gigantic thing.
Right.
50 million trillion.
50 billion trillion.
50 billion trillion.
Right.
Billion trillion.
Right.
That's almost like the federal budget. Come on. Goodness gracious. And if we had to have all those things just to have us.
Right. And keep in mind that 50 billion trillion, that's only 1% of the total stuff of the universe. So 50 billion trillion times 100 is what you need in order to have life in this universe.
And if the Big Bang took place 14 billion years ago or whatever, God had to know that. He had to estimate all those equations. That takes a mentality beyond anything we could even possibly conceive of.
Yes, something I talk about in my books is how if we were placed here any earlier than 14 billion years after the cosmic creation event, light from that cosmic creation event would not have time to travel on the surface of the universe and reach our telescopes. We astronomers would never be able to witness God creating the universe. And if we're any older than that, if God put us here any later, then dark energy would be expanding the universe at greater than the velocity of light, which means once again we would not be able to see that. We're living at the only time we can see the whole story.
Well, is the universe expanding?
Yes.
They just gave it more rapidly than they thought.
Because of dark energy, the universe expands more and more rapidly as time goes on. And as we look at the farthest reaches of the universe, going back to the very moment of creation, we see that that material is moving away from us at barely under the velocity of light, which means in the future it'll be going faster than the velocity of light and therefore will no longer be visible to us.
Okay.
So we're living at the one time and the one place we get to see the entire story of creation. If we were anywhere else in the universe, we wouldn't be able to see the whole story.
What do you see? Because the Bible talks about it, but I mean, elements with fervent heat. The guy that just got the Nobel Prize was talking about ice that is going to turn cold, but the Bible says it's going to turn hot. What do you see?
Well, there are Big Bang creation models that would actually predict the universe would end literally the way you see they're described in Isaiah and Revelation and Peter, that the entire space-time fabric would disappear into a singularity, there'd be a great heat, and the universe would disappear. Keep in mind, God told us He created this universe as a tool to bring about the end of all evil and suffering. And once evil and suffering is conquered and removed, the universe will have fulfilled its purpose. God will take it out of existence and replace it with a brand new one.
Disappear into a singularity.
Right.
Which is, what is it, like a great vortex? It just sucks everything out?
Right. Well, I mean, there's something called the ekpyrotic Big Bang creation model, which states that you have the universe as a 10-dimensional flat sheet. But if you go far beyond where we can see, it could possibly fold in on itself and become a U, and where the two surfaces are close enough together that over the course of billions of years, a space-time fluctuation, the top sheet can make contact with the bottom sheet, and if that were to happen, the whole thing would disappear.
And that's really what the Bible says. He's going to make a new heaven, a new earth.
Well, I'm not saying that that verse has to be interpreted literally. Some say it's a metaphorical passage, but the Bible is clear that the moment evil is conquered and removed, God will replace his universe with a new creation with radically different physics. It's something I talk about in my book, Why the Universe is the Way It Is.
Unbelievable.
So,
Hugh Ross, it's the kind of guy, I wish we had about 10 hours to talk about this because it is fascinating. But this is hidden treasure in the book of Job. Amazing things that are here. I appreciate Hugh Ross being with us. You can get this book where?
it's at any bookstore. You can get it online. You can get it from us at Reasons to Believe.
Outstanding, outstanding research, gentlemen. It's just wonderful to have him with us, and we're honored. Well, tomorrow, a woman tells us how she lost 100 pounds and won the biggest loser on NBC. We leave you today with these words from Jeremiah. For I know the plans that I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.